Hello everybody, it's Wayne and Gabrielle Enright here from Free Spirit True North. Welcome to the first exploration for us and the first in a series of webinars that we want to provide for people to help us all manage our well-being as we move through the current crisis. In a way, it's interesting that the crisis has provided us with an opportunity to work on our well-being. It's certainly showing up the cracks in people's well-being skills and capacities as we are faced with this enormous challenge. And we really have an opportunity at the moment to work on our own personal well-being as we navigate through this crisis. So Wayne and I wanted to put these things together for you to have an opportunity to explore some new tools and techniques, get an understanding of what's going on for our minds and our bodies and our emotions as we work our way through, and to see if we can put some more tools in our toolkit to build our resilience so that we can manage our way through this and come out on the other side feeling like we're more empowered and with more skills to move forward. So we hope we can begin to do this in this first session with you, and we encourage you to join us for the remaining sessions. Probably be about 30 or 40 minutes, and hopefully this will be of benefit for you. So we're going to begin really with just taking some time to reflect and pause and be present before we start talking and unpacking what's going on. So just take a moment to find a space and be still. Sit comfortably in your chair, and if you're willing, just allow your eyes to close and just notice what's going on around you. Be aware of what you can hear around you. Maybe there might be some birds chirping, or there might be the sound of family members moving around the house, or an eerie silence, which is what we're often dealing with at the moment. Lack of planes and cars. And maybe then focus on what you can feel: your legs, your feet on the ground, your body in the chair, your breath moving in and out of your nose or mouth. Just notice that breath. Feel it coming and going. Maybe it's a different temperature on the way in than on the way out. A bit warmer on the way out. It's amazing what our body does without us even having to think about it. Just take a nice deep breath. Right now, here we are, being present, ready to learn and understand. When you're ready, allow your eyes to open and be fully present here again. So first I'm going to pass on to Wayne to help us to begin to explore what part choice plays in our ability to respond. Over to you, Wayne. Thanks.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to talk about a concept called responsibility, and this is not really about whose fault it is when things go wrong. It's more about how we respond to situations such as the one we're all facing right at the moment. And so what I'd like to do is share a slide with you, which is called the responsibility model. And this model we've been using for a number of years in relation to stress management. So hopefully you can all see that. And if you look at the left-hand side over here, it's really all of the things that happen to us, good or bad, that we have to deal with every day. And generally when things happen that we're not expecting, our body automatically goes into a threat assessment, which Gabrielle is going to talk about in a moment. And then we either go into a survival response, which I'm calling the FFF response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. Or we may not see it as a potential threat, or we may feel that we can handle the threat quite well. So we tend to go more into a flow response, like it would if you were going down a set of rapids down a river and you were quite comfortable paddling amongst the rocks and just going with the flow. The other thing that happens if we are focused on the survival responses, we can sometimes react too defensively and push the blame onto the government or someone else who's given us a hard time, or we may deny the reality of our situation, and sometimes we can get stuck there. And that basically means we become powerless, and if you do that all the time, it becomes more like a learned helplessness way of operating, which prolongs the grief that we experience. Or you can go into more constructive response, where we're more curious, more open, and more agile. And so the grief is still there, but it's only temporary. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the grief states. You'll notice it's not called the stages of grief, because these don't necessarily happen in nice linear stages. They're more states that we move in and out of. And this can be a cyclical thing, or we can move through it quite quickly. So I'm going to hand back to Gabriel now to talk more about this and to go through an explanation of the states of grief.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Yes, it's really easy to see how people are moving through these states right now in the current crisis. The shock of this is really happening. I can't believe it's happening. Why is this happening? And it's happening to us. Similar to most people know where they were when 9/11 happened. There's a sense of something significant going on, but it hasn't been pinpointed to one day, and it's not an event that's passed. It's an event that's still going. So we're all in different parts of this grief curve in a way, and there's an initial shock of, I can't believe this is happening, a denial of, really, why is this happening to us? It surely can't be happening here in our own place. It was happening over in Italy, it was happening elsewhere, it wasn't happening here, but now it is. And then some anger sometimes that can come out in a frustration that we're not getting enough information, or a frustration that we feel like we want to blame somebody for things. And then questions and bargaining, like, why wasn't this handled sooner, or why aren't people doing more about it, or feeling a bit of powerlessness, I guess. What can I do? Some sadness, and I think that for some people has been that loss of freedom at the moment has given them a sense of sadness, that they can't do what they want to do, they can't connect with the people that they want to connect with, and this can move us into a state of depression. And that's just really a feeling of apathy, a feeling of powerlessness, and that we can't have an effect on anything around us. And these are all places that we can move through quickly or slowly, depending on the tools that we have, depending on what resources we have around us and our own resilience. So it's not a timeline that's predictable. Before we move to a place and begin to understand that we might need to just surrender to what is and see it for what it is, and get some understanding of how we can move through it, how we can understand ourselves and others better, and our ability to respond, and move to a place of acceptance and resolution. And in a way, we're doing this over and over again. The last couple of weeks, we've been going through mini grief cycles over and over again. To say that there's a lot going on is a massive understatement. I thought of another F for Wayne's 3 Fs there. I think a lot of people have been uttering the fourth F in a state of despair, really, because there's been so much to process, and it really sends us into a kind of a shock. We're managing health threats, disease threats, social threats, because we have to be distanced from people that are important to us, and economic threats, which are obvious as we mitigate this health or disease threat. So everyone's going to confront this at their own pace and with their own set of tools. These are some real threats and some perceived threats, depending on what's going on in our mind. So one of the models that's been used to help us to understand what's going on is the SCARF model. And that helps us to look at 5 different areas which, if they are not satisfactory, because our brain really likes to conserve energy, it likes to know that these are all in place, and when they're all in place, we can move forwards towards our rewards. But our brain likes to conserve energy. So if these are threatened, we move into that fight-flight mode. So the status in the first instance is what is our position, our place of importance? Has that been affected? And for a lot of people it has. It is being affected. They're not sure whether they've got a job or not. They're working from home. They're not relating to people the same way. A lot of these are interrelated, but status is the first one. Certainty is the next part of what we're looking at here. And is there uncertainty at the moment? Heck yeah, there's loads of uncertainties. So people are faced with not knowing, not able to predict the future and the length of what we're dealing with. Autonomy has been threatened because we're not in control of some of the decisions that are being made for us on our behalf, and we are at the effect of some of those decisions. We do have a choice about our response, which Wayne will go into further down the track. And our relatedness, so our connection, our sense of safety with others. You know, the social distancing is really affecting our ability to connect and feel that sense of relatedness. And fairness, who's getting the benefits, who's not getting the benefits, the packages that the government's being put out, is it fair? And we might have a sense of empathy and fairness for other people that they're not. So we can see, if we look at this model, that there's a whole lot of areas where we are either feeling an actual threat, or our body or our mind might be responding to a sense of threat. And this is what we need to manage, and why we may be feeling exhausted or tired or run down of these emotional responses like disbelief or fear or panic, anger and blame, othering, which, if you're not familiar with that term, is kind of pushing it away and blaming other people and making other people responsible or at fault. A sense of helplessness and confusion, isolation, all of these are really natural. I want to normalise these. Don't shy away from that. They're really normal, and everybody will have these feelings at some stage or other. Again, it's about not getting stuck there. It's about looking for, where are my resources? Are the challenges outweighing my resources, or can I bring my resources up to manage the challenges? The challenges is a bit like a seesaw. So where the challenge grows, we need to increase our resources, and that will help us feel more powerful and really make a difference to our sense of well-being. So understanding the neuroscience of the brain can really help us in the first instance. Understanding that we have these 3 levels of operation in our brain, the first one being the oldest, most primitive part of our brain, the reptilian brain, which is really the prime responder, if you like. It's got the whirligigs on the top, you know, the flashing lights and the sirens. It detects. It's actually the detector of that stress or that threat. So the scarf response almost starts before we've even had a chance to think. That's where mindfulness comes in, which we'll address shortly. It actually determines whether we're going to fight, flight, freeze. It just comes straight in, and our blood starts rushing away from our gut and into our arms and legs. And so when dealing with people on a naturopathic level, as I do, understanding that our body, if it's in stress mode, it's not going to digest as well, is a really important thing to understand. So our body is primed with the reptilian brain to flee, to fight, or to freeze. And then there's the limbic system, which surrounds that, which is really looking at our emotional connection, our relationships. Sometimes it's called the monkey brain. And when the monkey brain is in operation, it connects us to a whole lot of things. Thoughts, if anyone's played Barrel of Monkeys, you'll know what I'm talking about. One thought leads to the other, which leads to the other. And before we know it, we've gone down this cascade of thinking because the limbic system has taken over, and we're making decisions based on our emotions. And our digestion, again, is at the effect of this. If anyone's been nervous, then they'll know how that feels in their gut. And then there's the thinking brain, the neocortex or prefrontal cortex, which helps us to make rational decisions, to operate in a strategic way, to have emotional regulation. So if Wayne would bring up the next slide, it's a really lovely little hand model that can show us how when we flip our lid, what's happening is our rational brain exposes our limbic and our reptilian brains. If you look at the limbic and reptilian brain here as on the model there, if we flipped our lid, we're at the effect of our emotional, which is the limbic section, and our fight-flight response, which is represented by the palm of the hand and the brain stem under here. So it's really important that we understand that when we flipped our lid, we're not going to make the best decisions. We need to work out how we can bring that lid back down and operate from a more mindful perspective. One of the great tools that we have is our breathing. So our body goes from parasympathetic rest, digest, recover mode into fight, flight mode, or the sympathetic nervous system when we detect a threat. And one of the really good things about our breath is that we can help to reset our body and bring our body back into parasympathetic mode, to rest and digest mode, by using the breath. So one of the things that we can do, there's lots of different strategies around this. If we can just take a big breath in and let it go, we can eventually, by practicing more breath work, help our body to understand that when we've taken that deep breath in and we've let go, that it's all right. We can just put the guns back in the holsters and we got this. We can manage this. So the practice of regular breath work makes a massive difference to our sense of having tools to deal with our situation. And so we're going to do a lot of different breathing exercises through this series so that you can find different ways of calming yourself, putting the lid back on your limbic system and your fight flight system, and giving yourself some buffer time to respond with choice rather than unconsciously react. One technique that we can practice right now, and you can do this either with your eyes open or closed. I'll do it with mine closed because for me that helps me to focus, is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 anxiety strategy method. And it doesn't necessarily matter which order you do this in, but you begin by allowing your eyes to close and taking a big deep breath and letting go. And either imagining, or if you've got your eyes open, having a look at 5 different things that you can see. Might be 5 things you can remember seeing in this room. And just naming them in your mind. And then 4 things that you can touch. 4 things that you might have touched already as you've been in the space that you're in. There might be a pet in the room with you, as there is for me. Our dog Tom is nearby. And then 3 things you can hear apart from my voice. There might be the sounds of family in the background or birds chirping in the trees. And 2 things that you can smell. And 1 thing that you can taste or have tasted recently. And then you take a nice deep breath, breathing out, because breathing out is the letting go component, and allow your eyes to open and be present again. And what you've found in that time is that you've managed to bring that rational mind back into the driver's seat in a way, rather than the monkey brain driving this vehicle that is your life. And that way you get a greater sense of control and you can make better choices. So on the next slide, we've just outlined what that step is. It's a tool that you can use for yourself or you can share with others. And it really just gives you that buffer time so that you can stop your amygdala and your fight-flight brain from activating so immediately and come back to that place of choice. Thank you.
Okay, so far we've looked at what happens when we are scarfed or we have a threat that we perceive to be life-threatening, even if it isn't. And at the moment, some of the threats are quite life-threatening and some are kind of anticipatory in that we're not sure what the long-term outcome is going to be or what our family survival situation is going to be. So we really need to use those techniques to handle that threat response first because we're basically going to be responding or reacting quite defensively without really thinking through the options. So if we can use mindful techniques or the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 breath technique, to handle that threat response initially, we can calm ourselves down, and then we're in a better position to actually respond from a place of choice. So if we're going back to the responsibility model now, this is where we have the power in the middle here. And then remember, it's our ability to respond. When we don't take responsibility, we tend to push the blame on other people or the government or the virus, and we can get stuck there. And so we're focusing all the things we can't control rather than the things that are within our circle of influence. So responding constructively really requires us to stay calm, to focus on what we can do, what we can control. And then we still experience those states of grief, but they become more temporarily, or we don't go, they become more temporary and we don't go so deep with it. So we can learn, we can adapt, we can seek support, and the outcome is that we grow, we become more resilient, and then we're able to help other people. If we don't do that and we get stuck in the defensive mode, where our grief can be quite prolonged and we can feel quite powerless. So I'm going to hand back to Gabriel now to talk about this concept of responding within our circle of influence, assuming we've been able to control this threat response initially. Over to you, Gab.
Thanks, Wayne. One of the things that we know when working with others and also for ourselves is that when we are bringing our awareness to all things that are on the outside of our ability to control, such as what other people are doing, what other people are thinking, what other people are feeling, the major challenges, the adversities that are going on around us, it makes it much more difficult for us to feel power. And like Wayne was saying, we come into a place of powerlessness or helplessness. So when we do that, our ability to have an impact shrinks. So if we want to feel more powerful, we need to put our energy into the things in the centre, the things that we can have an impact on: our attitude, our mind, our effort, what we do, any actions we take, our words, our rituals. So all those things that we can impact. Control is a big word. Maybe we're getting to the point of understanding that we actually can't control anything really, but we can do stuff about some things, and then we can't do stuff about other things. And so we are learning to respond to the things that are going on around us, and we can do what we can do inside that circle, and that's where our power lies. So one of the things that we can do is look at how we manage our energy. And I really encourage you to have a good look at this material and think of what is it that for you helps you to restore your energy. A lot of it is about energy management. Because our cognitive load is quite high at the moment. We're having to manage a lot of decisions. Someone was talking to me about morality exhaustion this morning, about the fact that we have to think, oh, can I go and get that cup of coffee or not? Do I have to do that at a different time, or can I get in my car, or what will people think of me if I'm getting takeaway? There's a whole lot going on in our decision making around connection and rules that's really demanding a lot of our energy, and our mind likes to save energy. It likes a routine. So if there's some things here that you can put into your routine that help you to boost your energy levels again, I really encourage you to have a look and add your own and make your program work for you. So you might use all 4 areas here and something out of each area, or you might have a preference for one area. It's really just a way of exploring. So you might, with your mind, how do you look after your mind? It might be using your mind for some reading on a topic that interests you or helps you to escape. Some mindfulness activities, some meditations, savouring the moment, really savouring. We have extra time, it feels, on some levels now. We have time to be with the people around us, time to be alone, time to be in the garden, time to make delicious food, or just savour the moments that we have with gratitude. Journaling for some people works really well. One of the great ideas I saw on telly last night, there's been so much wisdom shared, which is really fantastic. If you don't have space in your house to have your own room, just sitting with your own pillow, sitting with your own blanket around you is your time. It's your signal to others that you're just having some time out, because we are perhaps having more time than we need with some of the people around us as well. So it can be important to understand what you can do with your mind that helps you to build your energy. Over in the body quadrant, it might be getting some activity, doing some yoga. Online yoga sessions are becoming really popular at the moment, and exercise classes, breathing work, which we'll tell you some more techniques as we go through this program. Massage is a bit hard to go out and get at the moment, but maybe it is massaging yourself, using some essential oils, using a roller, getting your body comfortable and moving your body in a way that you might find you're more at the computer than you normally are. So make sure you get up and have a break. Eating good food, nourishing your body. Relationships, this is the one where we're really challenged at the moment, at that quadrant of connection. So I think what we're doing, starting to do, or see people doing, is where they might have sent them a text, they're actually ringing a person rather than emailing. They might be getting on a Zoom, so we can connect visually with others. Connecting with animals, having a virtual cuppa. I did that on Facebook the other day. I said, who's up for a cup of tea? And we just grabbed our cups and had a virtual cuppa. You can do that, have drink sessions with somebody, whatever it is that helps you to connect and feel like you're not alone. Talking therapies, so I'm still doing online coaching, as well as whatever I can do with people that is within the rules. Expressing gratitude helps us to connect as well. And our environment, if we change, I know that when I change something in my environment, when I move the furniture around, my energy is better. When I declutter a cupboard, my energy goes up. All of these protocols that we can do, that whether we might not be able to go for the drive we might have before, but we can put some different music on. We can use nature. The impact of green on our well-being is incredible. So sitting under a tree, sitting next to a bush, looking at pictures of trees, or pictures of nature, all of those things are going to build our well-being. So find your own strategy, share what works for you. When you start to feel the red flags appearing, your stress levels go up, do some of these activities. And so there's some, just close for me, I'll just leave you with a few well-being tips of things that you can do. It's really important right now. Your well-being is actually high on the priority list of tasks. So it might not have been before, but it really needs to be for all of us. So eat well, include lots of zinc, whether it's best by supplement or with your diet. Zinc is really important for your immune system. So it's found in those foods, eggs and meat and nuts and seeds and legumes and mushies. Make sure you get sunshine where you can. It really helps you feel better, and it boosts your vitamin D, which helps your immune system. Mentally, give your brain a rest. Tap out every now and then. Schedule it in to just work for short periods of time. Whatever works for you, but really look after your nervous system. Get good sleep. We can talk more about that if you wish. Some supplements, physical activity. Emotionally, take time to be present to your senses. As we have today, that time out will help us to bring and look after, give ourselves an emotional hug if we take that time out. Switch off the media, social apps and devices for a little bit, and just be creative with your socializing. There's lots of ways we can do that. And spiritually, whatever that means to you, stay connected to the bigger picture. Stay connected to how you can make this have meaning for you, or for someone close to you, or a stranger or a neighbour. There are a lot of people doing wonderful things to reach out to others. So this is a snapshot for today. I'm going to let Wayne close with a couple of thoughts, but I've really appreciated the time to be with you. If you need to contact either of us, please reach out if there's anything we can do to help you. We're here for you, and we've appreciated your time and appreciated you tuning in today. Thanks very much. I'll pass you back to Wayne.
Thank you, Gabriel. One other concept which we'll leave you with is it's a model which we've adapted from a man called Abraham Maslow, and most people would be familiar with this, particularly if you've done a little bit of reading around psychology and personal development. And Maslow proposes that there are levels of needs, and that these are in a hierarchy. And the truth is that the hierarchy is very, you can be at one level and then another level, and they don't necessarily stack on top of each other in this particular order. It's just a model to help us think about how we meet our needs and where our focus is, particularly in a crisis situation. So that I'll just go through the levels and then talk about how it relates to our current situation. The first level of need for most people is survival. So just your physical survival, your mental survival, emotional, and also social, you could say. So we tend, in a crisis like we're facing now, we tend to focus first of all on survival. And so most of us are thinking about, where's the money going to come from? Do we have a job? Is our business going to be functional in 12 months' time? How are we going to survive self-isolation? All of these kinds of questions. And then as we get those things sorted out, we can then focus on the next level, which Maslow talks about in terms of love and belonging and acceptance. And there's been a lot of talk about connection versus social isolation at the moment. So you can see where that fits in. We have our survival needs pretty well met. And then the next thing we tend to be focused more on is staying connected with other people and feeling that we have a sense of belonging. And so those first two levels are really under threat at the moment. But we can work our way through that, and we can get to a point where we start to then focus on more on self-esteem, value. What is our value? What is our purpose? So those are the kind of the next level questions that we might be asking in a few months' time, when we start to get comfortable with those first two levels. Is what is my value? What's going to happen when I go back to work or when this is all over? What really is my purpose? And some people will be asking those questions already. The next level up is personal growth and achieving your potential. And generally, we focus on that once we've got all those other three needs met. And at the moment, we're probably not focused on that because our attention's taken down to those lower levels. But for people who get those first three levels handled pretty much, they'd start to focus on how they can grow and adapt, particularly if you're in a business situation or you've just lost your job. You might be thinking about what are some new things that I could learn, how can I adapt and grow as a person. And Maslow pretty much finished there with his hierarchy of needs. And then there was a guy called Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, who added another level, which he called transcendence. And so I've just simplified that by calling it beyond self. And they're the people who are not just focused on their own needs, but also focusing on helping others. And so in a crisis, we tend to go into fear. And then if we can work our way back up and get those other needs met, we can be more compassionate, more focused on helping other people. So over the next few months, we're going to share with you some different webinars which address these different levels of the hierarchy, and hopefully we can go into those in a little more depth. But that's it for today. We really enjoyed talking to you. This is our first webinar, so hopefully it hasn't been too clunky. And we look forward to speaking with you again soon. If you need any help or support, feel free to give us a call. It's freespirittruenorth.com.au is our website, and our contact details are there. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Gab, before we finish up?
Just be well and stay connected, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.